Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Piers, thank you so much for writing such a beautiful song. Thank you so much. Woo! Well, thank you for being with us this evening. This is the second installment of our Spiritual Gifts series. And Reverend Jean Marie just did such a fabulous job last week of kind of kicking it off. She did something I've never seen before. She actually talked about faith, which was the one she was going to do, and then she did the intro to spiritual gifts and tucked it in the middle of it. So it was awesome. I was like, where is she going with that? It's amazing. That's great. So you actually got an introduction. If you weren't here last week, you can always watch whatever you've missed, and so you can stay on top of it. And what she really talked about was how spiritual gifts come to us, and mostly we extract the spiritual gifts from our Christian scriptures from 1 Corinthians. And so there is a listing of those, and those are the ones that we're going to be hitting in our series. But we're also aware that the spiritual gifts that are listed there are also spiritual gifts that, yes, you can develop, and yes, you can pray for, or that you can open yourself to. But everybody has them in some degree, some form, because we all have the capacity to open to Spirit, and Spirit gives the gift that is needed for the moment that occurs. And whether you've demonstrated it in your life in the past or not, it often happens that when you need it the most is when you can open to it, and that's how things can start to come through for you. And so tonight, what I'm going to be talking about is the gift of wisdom, the spiritual gift of wisdom. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 8, to one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom. That wisdom comes forth not as something you have, but something you access. And actually, that should be even better news to us. Because it isn't just what you think you have, that you're not the container, that you got your portion, or that you got slighted because you didn't get your portion. I mean, whatever other talents or gifts you think you maybe shoulda, coulda had, but you didn't have. All of that kind of thing is coming through. For wisdom and for all of these spiritual gifts, you have access to all of them from an infinite source. So you don't even have a measured amount. You have all you need and all you can bring through and all that you can access, and as much as you need for any situation. Can I hear an amen? Amen. That's right, exactly. I think I'm done here. No, I'm just getting started. Wisdom isn't something we have, as I said, it's something we access through our connection to Spirit. In Matthew chapter 13, verse 52, Jesus said, He said to them, every teacher of the law who has become a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old. What does that mean, right? The teacher of the law who is a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house that brings out treasures, old treasures as well as new treasures. We are that person that actually brings the wisdom and experience that others have taught us, of other mentors, of other things that have come through for us, in ways in which we have benefited from the teachings of others, or things that we've learned in school. I mean, school is what? It's really just a routinized opportunity to learn from those who have tread before us, right? That's really what it is, and it's concentrated. That's why it's so important. And because consciousness has evolved, and because we've been on this planet for so long, it takes us longer and longer to grok all that stuff, right? And so we've got to really put that together and continue to be curious and following in the place of others. The old treasures, the treasures that we have been given, the ones that we've inherited. But then there are the new treasures as well. The ones that come up in the moment as we need them. Have you not recognized that there are times, situations, people that call something out of you that you 10 minutes before didn't know you knew? You don't know until the situation arises and something pops out of your mouth. Usually, and it's not everything that pops out of your mouth, but it's really the stuff that you go, wow, that was cool, I should write that down. Let me go over here and write that down because I want to remember that. The thing of it is that we're always being called. We're always being, when we can, when we're open, when we are really and truly coming from pure intention, that we are really already connected, right? And so in the living moment, we have the capacity to bring a new treasure out into view. Those of you who are parents, know that it isn't until the child asks something of you or the teenager frustrates you that you actually discover that you know something more than you thought you knew. There is always that kind of remembrance. And as a minister, I'll tell you, it happens all the time to me that I didn't even know that teaching until you brought forth the question or the situation or the counseling need or whatever. And then suddenly, out of my pure intention to simply serve, something comes through that I didn't even know until we had this encounter. It's a holy moment. It is a privilege of this work. However, as a parent, I continue to screw up all the time, so just don't think that's too great. Dr. Benjamin Spock, pediatrician and author, says, trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. Because you are connected to an infinite source of wisdom. And thank God, right? It's not limited to what we can keep up here. It's not limited to how much we can remember or how much we've been told or who has been in our lives that has changed us necessarily. We're impacted by it, but how much can we hold on to, right? How much can we draw from in the moment? Thank goodness we have an infinite source that we can always draw from. In Matthew chapter 13:53, Jesus said, when Jesus had finished the parables, he moved out from where he was, and coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue. And they were amazed. And they said, where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, and Simon and Judas? Aren't all his sisters still with us? Where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor, except in his own town and in his own home. I hear a little bit of Jewish humor in that it almost sounds like a stand-up comedian, a one-liner, you know? A prophet is not without honor, except, of course, in his hometown or in his home, right? Where everybody knows him, where everybody knows that, you know, he puts on his pants like everybody else, or in his case, I guess, his cassock like everybody else, right? But I mean, everything, there's nothing special about this guy because we grew up with him. How does he know something we don't know? How did he get here that way? And so the thing to remember is that it isn't enough to have wisdom or to speak the truth when we are walking through our lives. There has to be a receptivity for it as well, for it to be integrated. There has a time and a place. And sometimes even Jesus can't get an audience. Sometimes Jesus can't heal Because there's no faith there, there's no receptivity. So knowing that, we have to give ourselves a lot of space too. That we do the best we can, and we do have good advice for those we love, but sometimes it isn't for us to share with them. We can try, we probably have numerous times, but the truth is, at some level, they can't hear it from us. They have got to go on their own journey and hear it from some other place. And we would do well to pray them on that journey, honestly, to find it for themselves, instead of hammering it into them as best we can. In James chapter 3, verse 17, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Because you see, true wisdom that comes from our connection with Spirit does come down, so to speak. We think of it as arising in us, depending on where we think it's coming from, but we know it isn't us, right? When we have really received something powerful and true, we know it actually has come to us or through us from some place, not us, right? And so it comes out of a higher perspective, and so it exists outside of the polarization of our experience here, and therefore is pure and peace-loving, because it is egoless. It is submissive, considerate, full of mercy and good fruit. It comes from a high place because it is neutral. It doesn't judge. It doesn't take sides. It is not born out of a need, an ego need, to be better than or to compete or to fix. So it is impartial and sincere, only given to help, to serve. That's how you know you have a gift of the Spirit, no matter what it is. It's because it has come from a pure place, and because it comes in its fullness. You don't get it in dribs and drabs. You get the whole thing at once to really heal, to really change. Nikola Tesla, scientist, inventor, he said, "My brain is only a receiver in the universe. There is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." That's a scientist. Albert Einstein, physicist, said, and now listen to this. I'm going to break this up. I don't usually do this from the platform because this is a dense statement, so listen. You ready? Leaning forward? Okay, here we go. This is Albert Einstein. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in primitive forms, this knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of true religion. I heard a woo. Do you want to hear that again? Okay. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, something beyond obscure, something we can't quite wrap our heads around or touch, it actually exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their primitive forms. I can only talk about it with the limitation of language. This knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of true religion. Another scientist. I don't know if you've ever heard Albert Einstein being accused of being an atheist or even an agnostic, but I don't think he was either, not in the true sense. I believe he simply acknowledged a higher deity than the one he was presented with by most religion. I think some of us may have experienced a faith tradition or a religion where it served us for a period of time in our lives potentially and have sort of outgrown it. Take what we like, leave the rest, bring it along, and have found ourselves here in a philosophy that opens up a little bit more, allows more exploration, allows you to find your own measure of truth, right? And yet, I would say that the God that was presented to me as I was growing up, the judging God, the heaven or hell God, the punishing God, the try to be like Jesus, but don't be like Jesus because you can't be like Jesus because you're not made like Jesus, but you got to just keep trying to be like him. But if you think you are, then that's a sin. I mean, that's just, I'm out. I'm done. You know, I can't, I'm sorry. I'm crazy enough. I don't need that philosophy to mess me up further. So I'll just tell you that when I found out that we already had the Christ nature in us, now that's something I can work with, because that's a place that gives me the opportunity to actually grow into something and begin to trust myself. That was powerful. And I would say then that was when I got to see the boss God to the God I was taught about. I want to see his boss. I want to talk to I want to talk to the manager of the universe. I don't know about this guy who wants to, it's just too small of a God after a while, right? How about the serenity prayer? You know it? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Knowing when to accept things as they are and let it ride and try to find a generous place in that. Or to change things that we can, to have the courage to actually do something different, to say the thing we have not said before, to do the thing we couldn't do before. That's a pivotal moment, isn't it? So I don't know why they don't call this prayer the wisdom prayer. Because the wisdom to know the difference, to me, is everything. Because if I go with the thing to accept things as it is, there's a part of me that maybe has always done that, and it hasn't really gotten me anywhere, because I'm really supposed to change it. I'm supposed to act, maybe change me. And on the other hand, if I'm trying to change everything, relationship, jobs, homes, everything else in my life, that maybe I really have to learn how to accept and stay with something long enough to get the gift out of it. And it is only wisdom that would teach me which way to be. Because my ego does not know. That's all I have. That I know. 1 Kings chapter 3, King Solomon is known for his great wisdom. You know how he got it? This is how he got it. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream. And God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Now, this night happened shortly after Solomon ascended to the throne after the death of his father David. And so God tells him in this dream, ask for whatever you want me to give you. This begins their relationship. The relationship that his father had with God is now Solomon's time to have this kind of relationship. So how does he act? He says this: "Now, Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Then Solomon awoke and he realized it was a dream. But was it? Because you see, what comes from pure intention of the heart, the pure intention of the heart is the container for discernment, for wisdom. If we are not calculating or logicking or determining or thinking or building a case, right, for who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who isn't and what to do and what not, if we're not up in here but we drop down into our hearts are seated in a container of wisdom. It is here that we feel and that we know what we know. We still have freedom not to act on it because we sometimes still do, right? And yet, we knew right then it wasn't going to turn out well, right? Because we knew, because we know, because we are tapped into an infinite amount of wisdom. Pure intention of the heart, discernment, is the wisdom to know the difference. It blesses our life with every other gift as well. The wealth, the honor, the happiness, the joy, the friends, the family, everything else will follow when we follow the truth of our hearts and come from pure intention as often as we can. Brock Kidd shares this story. "Help," I half whispered as I got out of bed. You see, my son Harrison had started high school, and I knew all of the temptations and possibilities for poor decisions that lay ahead of him. How could I help him, I thought. And at the other end of the spectrum, our daughter Mary Catherine had just turned 3, and our youngest, Ella Grace, was only 1. Between diapers and fevers and toddler tantrums, my wife Corinne and I were often overwhelmed. Help, I thought again as I brushed my teeth. My career was hitting its stride, and business was great. But success came with more responsibility and longer hours as well. And I had recently said yes to chairing the board of a startup school for some of the poorest children in Nashville, Tennessee. I whispered, am I in over my head? As I hurriedly showered for church. Help. We dropped off the girls in the nursery at church, and Harrison, Corinne, and I quickly slid into the pew. Our pastor was explaining. Today we're going to talk about Solomon. Next came the familiar story of how God appeared to Solomon in a dream, offering him the gift of his choice. Solomon surprisingly asked for wisdom rather than wealth or power. And then I thought of my earlier pleas. In my distress, I'd forgotten where to go that would allow me to tackle life's problems. The answer was and would always be God. Church wasn't yet finished, but already a calmness had settled over me. Whatever lay ahead, if I, like Solomon, looked to God for wisdom, help would be on its way. From 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 8. To one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom. The source of all wisdom lies in you. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.